as I officially welcome you all to The Wire, on The Wire, our monthly ACE collaboration. And I acknowledge that I'm on beautiful Biripi country today, and I would like to acknowledge their elders, the keepers of knowledge, and I would like to acknowledge their deep connection to the land and waters here, and encourage you to acknowledge the First Nations traditional custodians of the lands that you are joining us from today, if you would like to. Please do that in the chat, and yeah, take a moment to start our webinar in a respectful way. All right. If you're welcome to have your cameras off or on, depending on where you are up to with your lunch, or, you know, you're resting your face, that's all fine too. Thank you to those who are acknowledging. I have got a special announcement today. I want you all to be doing your pretend drum roll on the table. I'm going to do a real one. Right? Highwire is launching a new product. Calling it a product makes it sound very important, doesn't it? And corporate. But here we go. It's called the Huddle. What's that all about? That sounds exciting, doesn't it? The Huddle. Well, it's all about skills, strategies, and support for community sector managers. Yes, because we are passionate about middle managers. All right, I'm sorry if that's not you, but I'm really talking today about the meat in the sandwich. I'm talking about the middle managers, the first-time team leaders, team supervisors, team leaders, all of those sort of people there that are leading a team. And we've been thinking for a long time now, as we've gotten around so many organisations across Australia in the time that we've been doing this organisational development work and all of the accreditation work. And what we've seen is it's really tough for middle managers to get the skills, strategy and support that they need to look after their team. And I happen to be personally passionate about leadership and adult education, vocational education and training. I'm really at the heart of, you know, my core, I am a facilitator, and, you know, that my heart is in the community sector. So hence the Huddle. A bit more information about this. We have put together some practical professional development workshops tailored for community sector team leaders. I know, they don't even have to leave their desk. They can if they want. They're allowed to leave their desk, but they certainly don't have to leave their town, and they don't have to traipse it off to the nearest sort of major city, or even weave their way through the busy traffic of that major city. They get to do it from wherever they're comfortable. And so it's an online offering. Do you want to have a look at the program? Yes? Good. All right, I'm going to share the program with you in the chat right now so that you can click on it and open it up. And you can even share some early thoughts with me about how does this make you feel when you see this? What sorts of things have we been able to nail there, and what sorts of things have we forgotten about in terms of topics that we might like to cover for this special group of people? So here it comes. Click away, have a look. I can tell you it's coming to you in 4 quarters. 4 quarters, right? And the first quarter is all about a focus on you. So it's a focus on you as a leader, maybe as a new leader, as an emerging leader, or maybe as a leader of a team for quite a long time, but thinking about what it's like for you, what motivates you. Quarter 2 is a focus on team culture and getting the culture right. So creating a culture in a team that is ripe for things like trust and psychological safety and, you know, getting this team to great. Quarter 3 is all about focus on communication. So elevating those communication skills to the next level. It even includes things like making an impactful presentation and having those, I like to call them difficult but necessary conversations. You know those ones? Yeah. And then quarter 4 is all about focus on improvement and leading change. Some coaching and mentoring skills in there as well. So we've chosen topics that are hopefully impactful for any organisation and hopefully impactful for those managers who, or, you know, first-time team leaders who are looking around for ways that they might be able to, you know, increase their skills and talk with other managers about, you know, how they're going and what are they doing and what's working, and get some support to develop their confidence, you know, to lean in to some of the tough stuff around being a middle manager. So that's what this is all about. I hope that you like the look of that. And you can register for one, you can register for all of them if you want to. If you register for someone and they can't go, you can just put someone else in there. All right? So it's meant to be really flexible. It's meant to be sort of short and sharp and impactful. Masterclass style, I suppose, but I don't like that term. So I'm just calling them, you know, the workshops. I hope you embrace that, and I hope that you can give us some good feedback. We're launching to learn, so we are sort of hoping to make lots of mistakes and learn from all those mistakes. So anything you can share with us that would help us to create something that would be really impactful for your organisation would be fantastic. I am looking for, so the first workshop's free, so, you know, send all your people along to that if you want. There's going to be 40 seats available for that first workshop. But I am looking for 5 organisations to send me a couple of people to participate in as many workshops as they would like to for free, in return for helping us to evaluate it. So if you're an organisation today and you've got a person or a couple of people you think would like this this program, or, you know, any of these workshops, and they would be willing to participate in some focus groups periodically through the program, I will love you to email me. That's enough for me. You're welcome to talk to me or say anything about any of that if you would like. But I would like to introduce you to James so that he can introduce himself. But thank James in front of everyone here for coming along today to the Wire and showing us all the ways that we can use the portal. You know what I'm talking about when I talk about the portal, yes? Of course, that's why you're here. All the ways that you can use the portal to your best advantage as you prepare for your accreditation. All right? The record button's on, James, so people will be able to, they'll be able to look at this while they're doing their next self-assessment. So thank you so much.
No problem. Okay, thanks, Marie. And hi, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name's James from BNG, and we provide standards and performance pathways, or probably quite a lot of you are using the SHS quality portal potentially, I'm guessing. Now, I'm assuming that everyone is reasonably familiar with the portal, so I can go through a couple of basics. If there's anyone on the call who's completely unfamiliar with the portal, I can. Oh, is that Shaz waving? Is that completely unfamiliar? Okay. So maybe just for Shaz and maybe a few others benefit who are not familiar with the portal, I might just kick off with some of the absolute basics. So apologies for those that are familiar with the portal, because I think the main focus for today is to assist you guys who are familiar with the portal around, you know, how you prepare for future accreditations, how you can go back over previous work, etc. A couple of handy tips around all that stuff. So why don't I just, oh, actually, no, apologies, I should have started off by just stating that I'm here on Gadigal land myself. So we also pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Now, let me share my screen. Just bear with me a moment. Okay, can you see that? Is that all okay, Marie? Have I shared it properly?
Yes, James, that looks great.
Oh, good. Okay. Now, we're here on the homepage of Standards and Performance Pathways. So for those that are not familiar with the portal, I'll just spend about 5 minutes, hopefully not too much more, just going through the absolute basics of the portal. So we're here on the homepage, and up the top of the portal, there's all these tabs to navigate around the portal. importantly, if we just jump across all over to the right-hand side, I just want to make sure everyone is familiar with the reading room. And this is where we store all the resources that SPP provides to assist providers in working through their various standards, whether it's ACES certificate, aged care standards, disability, whatever it happens to be. So we file all the resources under these headings. And then if you look up any of these resource headings, we might as well go to governance as an example. Then you'll see all the various subheadings under this theme. And if you expand those headings, you'll see a whole range of information sheets and templates and good practice guides and things like that. So a lot of resources in the reading room. If you're not familiar with SPP, but your organisation has an account in the portal, I'd encourage you to come to the reading room and take a good look in your own good time. But just while we're here, a handy tip for everyone, just want to make sure that everyone is familiar with this. I'm assuming everyone will be familiar with the fact that you can search for resources. So you simply type in whatever thematic word search it might be, complaint, child safety, incidents, whatever it happens to be, and you'll see a bunch of resources pop up here. And for those that are not familiar, just really quickly, you know, in terms of what a typical SPP policy template looks like, they're all easily downloadable Word docs, which are designed so that you can download it and tailor it to your particular needs. And you don't need to use that format. You can just copy and paste from our template and put it straight into your own format or structure or pre-existing document. So all pretty straightforward stuff. But just one other handy tip I just want to make sure everyone's aware of is here. You'll just see under this heading, resources by topic, we've got this little one-page PDF doc which talks about fast codes. So if you're looking for something in relation to a certain set of standards like ACES, when you're in the reading room, you can search under ACES 1.1 or, you know, ACQS, Aged Care Quality Standard, Standard 1, or it might be the Child Safe Standards, you know, New South Wales Child Safe Standards, NSW CS1. So if you get these fast codes, when you come to the reading room here, if we type in ACES 1.1, that way you'll see what resources we have tagged as potentially being relevant to that particular part of ACES or NDIS or aged care or whatever it happens to be. So hopefully it's a handy little tip there. The other thing I just want to make sure everyone is keeping a little bit of an eye on, you know, these updates that we're putting out, even though I think probably for most people on this call, your core standards are probably going to be ACES certificate, but there might be some other things, interesting things going on. As one small example, you know, only not much more than a month ago, we released a brand new refreshed, you know, update to the national standards for volunteer involvement. So during Volunteer Week, Volunteering Australia released their updated new volunteering standards. So the new assessment for the new volunteering standards, for example, is in the portal. So I guess that's just one of those other messages we want to leave with everyone in the portal, is that there's always lots of interesting little things being added into the portal. And it's just worthwhile occasionally popping into the reading room and seeing what might be there. You know, I know another thing that DCJ had asked us to add in a few months back, which a lot of you might have missed out on, but in ACES, for example, there's references to a disability access and inclusion plan. So DCJ and Homelessness New South Wales asked us to develop some sort of template around disability access and inclusion plan. So just for those of you who may not have seen that, probably a lot of you may not have seen that, it looks as follows. So just providing a basic outline for a disability access and inclusion plan. And at the end of it, we've kind of got a table of kind of actionable items across different areas: service culture and inclusion, physical environment, access to activities, communication and information sharing, workforce, etc. So anyway, that's something that's explicitly referred to in Australian Service Excellence Standards, as well as I think the QIC standards. So just an example of a new resource that might be of interest to some providers on the call. And to that end, I guess, just so that everyone knows with the portal, what we tend to do with the portal is we put out alerts. When we're adding things to the portal, we put out alerts But I think, you know, if we've got a brand new set of standards like those volunteering standards or a resource like the Disability Access and Inclusion Plan, we typically just put out a single alert, and if you miss it, you might never know it's there. So that's why it's just good to occasionally, you know, come back into the portal and have a bit of a rummage around and see if you can find anything. Yeah, so that's the reading room, evidence guides for all the leading standards as well. I'm probably spending more time than I said I would. Just with these intro comments for those that are not familiar with SBP, just with the standards tab, for those that are not familiar, this is where the long list of standards exists in SBP, which seems to be getting longer and longer every year. So just remember there is a fast code or a search bar up the top here. So if you're looking for something in particular, like ACES, you know, you can click on ACES in the search bar, and then just the ACES standards will all pop up here. And you'll see we've got, you know, not just ACES certificate, we've also got assessments for ACES award. And you'll notice we've got 2 assessments for each, mapped and unmapped. So for those that are not familiar, the mapped assessments are just where we've got our own unique SPP way of mapping between different standards, so that if you have to meet multiple standards, a mapped assessment will simultaneously address common requirements across more than one set of standards. But I think for the simplicity purposes today, we might just focus on unmapped ACES certificate. But again, for Shaz or anyone else who's not familiar with SPP, if you get a chance, come into the standards tab and take a look through all the different standards here in the standards tab, because while your core standards may just be the Australian Service Excellence Standards, there are lots of other things here in the standards tab, you know, best practice modules, you know, things like those volunteering standards or the rainbow tick standards, or even, you know, some of these best practice modules down the bottom around different aspects of running your organisation, whether it's, you know, finance, governance, HR management, information management, etc. So obviously all the leading health and community service standards all around Australia here in that standards tab. If we just come all the way back to our homepage, so now we'll probably just get back a bit more on track with what we wanted to cover off today. I wanted to talk about, you know, if you've already done a whole lot of work in the portal, then, and you've perhaps even been through an audit and Marie hasn't been too tough on you, you've successfully made it through your audit and you're preparing for a second audit. You know, what can you be doing in the portal? So there's just a number of handy tips that I wanted to run through today. In the first instance, let's just click into the Australian Service Excellence Standards, ACES certificate. So we're now inside the assessment module for ACES certificate, and it's the unmapped one. And if we expand any of these standard headings, you'll see obviously all of the underlying modules relating to the various indicators under each of those parts of the standards. And you'll see that I've pre-populated 1.1.1 around the roles and values. And I've linked in a couple of dummy evidence docs for this particular indicator. And for those that aren't familiar, when you're inside one of these assessment modules, you know, we've got a click through straight to the relevant section in the ACES certificate evidence guide, just to help you think about what sort of work you might, or evidence you might be linking in against this particular requirement. So here I've just linked in a couple of evidence docs. We've answered some questions here. So all fairly straightforward around how you self-assess against the standards. So I'm assuming if you've already gone through ACES certificate already and you've been through your audit, the very first thing I'd probably be suggesting for everyone, if you haven't done it already, is going to your evidence pack. So you'll see the blue button in the bottom right-hand here says Open Evidence Pack. Very easy to get to the evidence pack, and it's a really important part of the portal. So every set of standards has its own evidence pack. So at the moment, we're just going to go to the evidence pack for ACES certificate. And you don't just get there when you're inside one of these modules like Indicator 1.1.1. If I go back one step, when I first clicked into the Australian Service Excellence Standards, you'll see blue button, top right-hand corner says Open Evidence Pack. And even if I go back to my home page, where I favorited Australian Service Excellence Standards, you'll see there's a drop-down menu for that set of standards, and I can open up the evidence pack there. So very easy to get to the evidence pack, and it looks as follows. I'm sure most of you will be familiar with this. So here I've just linked in a couple of evidence docs. I haven't really done very much work in here. I'm assuming most of you guys have got fairly high percentage levels already against your ACES certificate assessment. But I would say the very first thing I would be recommending is, when you're doing future work, is to come to the bottom of the evidence pack for the set of standards concerned and to click on this Save to Download button. Because what you probably want to periodically do is create an archive of your work in the portal. So you only ever click on that Save to Download button once, and then it sort of probably takes 30 seconds or a minute to generate your report. If we come down to the bottom of the page again, you can see terrific. Today, on the 18th of July at almost 2:30 Sydney time, we've now got our fresh archive. And the reason why I want to do that is, if I'm now preparing for a new audit, I just want to keep a record. Before I start to make a whole lot of changes in the portal, I want to have a record of what I had in place at a certain point in time, or at the time of my previous audit, for example. So now I've created my archive as of today, and that gives me two things. It gives me my high-level assessment report, which is pretty simple. It just says what evidence have I linked against each of those ACES certificate indicators. So here in my demo account, I've only, done a very tiny amount of work. I'm the grand sum of 11% underway against standard 1.1. But just for illustrative purposes, I just want to say this is a handy record because it just summarizes what evidence did you link in, first time around, or at that point when you archived your work. Because going forward, if you're going to change your evidence and you're going to be deleting evidence or replacing some evidence, you probably want to have that record of what exactly do we have in place, because that can also help to inform you around, okay, when we start to do that replacement work and editing work with all of our linked evidence docs, etc., we just want to be able to constantly refer back to a document like this. The other thing that we can, when we archive our work, the bottom item here is an evidence pack zip file. So the other handy thing that you can do here is, with all of your linked evidence documents that you've previously linked against ACES certificate, or it could equally be against NDIS or aged care standards or whatever standards you have to meet, child safe standards, you can download an evidence pack zip file. So with one click of a button, you can download every bit of linked evidence against this set of standards into your computer folder. So you've got that nice little record of everything that you had in place, because obviously we're about to start changing stuff. We're about to start removing evidence or updating evidence. The other thing, of course, when you're here in the evidence pack, which is the nice, neat, consolidated summary of all of your linked evidence throughout the standard, if you want to, it's obviously quite easy to start clicking on these red crosses and deleting or unlinking evidence docs. If I click on any of these red crosses, it doesn't actually delete the evidence doc from the portal, it removes it from this part of the standards. So it's a quick way in which you can potentially be amending evidence in your evidence pack. But probably more importantly, I want to go into the document library. Well, actually, maybe one more thing I might do here. While I'm here at the evidence pack, but for Shaz's benefit, because she's not familiar with the platform, and anyone else, from the evidence pack here, we can also generate this green button here says Q&A report, which is just it's a summary of all of our answers and linked evidence docs for ACES certificate. So here you'll see, strategic planning, the very first modules around roles and values. This is the first indicator of the roles and values of the organisation, clearly identified and communicated. And here's our qualitative commentary, which could have been up to 500 or 600 words, and our linked evidence docs here. So this is an on-screen report of all of our work against ACES certificate, and that can be downloaded into PDF or Excel. But what I wanted to do is to take a look at the document library. So again, step number one, I think, is to archive your work like we did a second ago in the evidence pack area. Step number two, I would be saying is, when you start to think about reviewing all of your evidence in the portal, because some of you are probably going to have some pretty large numbers of evidence docs in the portal. When you come to the document library here, the issue you're going to have is if you've got 100+ docs, and we've come across organizations that have got several thousand docs in their accounts sometimes, it can get a bit unwieldy if you're trying to scroll through very large numbers of docs on screen. So again, we'd be suggesting click on the blue button in the top right-hand corner, which says download report. And then very simply, that's just going to download a list of all of your evidence docs into Excel, which is probably a slightly easier format to work in. So you can see the various column headings we've got here. The first column A is the name of the document that we call the document in SPP. The underlying file name, if it's a PDF doc, or if it happens to be a hyperlink, like you can see this first doc here, we called it BNG, who we are on our website. It's kind of a bit like our vision and values or something like that. It's got our hyperlink. On our website, the data was loaded up. I loaded it up a little bit earlier today, and I linked that to that assessment module around indicator 1.1, which is around roles and values. And then these last 4 columns are where for any single evidence document in the portal, we've got the ability to assign them for review. So we then include the last review date, next review date, assignee, and any notes that we might write in relation to that evidence doc. So once you download your document library report, the good thing is that you can utilize all that nice Excel functionality, hover your cursor over all the evidence docs here, and then you could potentially click on the data option in Excel and click on the filter option, and then you've got the ability to start to filter and sort things. So I might say, I just want to see evidence docs I've linked against roles and values, for example. Or perhaps more importantly, I might want to say, well, I want to sort by oldest to newest, because that's pretty quickly going to tell me in my demo account here, I've got lots of old resources that date back to 2018, 2019, and this is perhaps going to give me a list of evidence docs I either need to delete or I might want to replace with new docs. The other thing I'd say to you when you download this report as well is you'll see in this middle column, it talks about linked assessments. So for example, if you look at these docs here, they're all old docs from 2018, 2019, but the report doesn't list that they're linked to anything. So not only are they old, this report's telling me that they haven't been linked to any part of ACES certificate or any other sets of standards that I have to work with. So again, that's perhaps a reminder that I need to think about getting rid of those docs. So that's all just sort of part of that, doc review process. I talked about just a second ago assigning documents for review. So again, as part of that whole process of getting ready for future audits, etc., an important part of that might be, going through all these docs, but then importantly, assigning workflow items, some sort of action to a colleague in relation to certain evidence docs. So I might search here by last updated, for example. We can see we've loaded up our mission statement or something like that. If I wanted someone, I might look at that and think, oh, the mission statement from 2023, do we have an updated version of the mission statement? So that's where I can assign a task to any colleague that I've invited into my organizational account in the portal, give them a due date and say, hi, Dan, please review and update the mission statement. I'll just write MS because I'm too slow at typing. So now what will happen is an email notification will go out to that colleague, Dan, and he'll be prompted to log in and do what we've asked him to do here. So when the email notification goes out, it will list the name of the doc. it'll obviously go to the assignee, and we know the assignee's email address because that's his login. It'll list the review date for that doc, and it'll list whatever comments we write in here. So we can get quite detailed and prescriptive around what we want Dan to do. And you can see there's actually a character limit just here of 3,000 characters. So you can literally write a couple of hundred explanatory words on what exactly you want Dan to do in relation to that evidence doc if you really want to get carried away. If Dan did review that evidence doc, incidentally, he can click on the drop-down menu here to the right-hand side of that evidence document, and he can choose the reviewed option, which updates this field just here and says this particular document was last reviewed on the 18th of July 2024. And then Dan might sort of put some fresh comments in here, and he might even move or update the next review date, for example. Now, the couple of other things I just want to explain to everyone as well, with our drop-down menu here, is we've got the ability to rename an evidence doc, replace an evidence doc, or delete an evidence doc. We'll come back to these first two in a second, but if you've got a large number of docs, and like I said before, you've identified a whole lot of docs that are, a bit old, you've got the ability to go, tag, 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 and you can bulk delete evidence docs. Alternatively, you can just go straight to the delete menu option and delete a single evidence document at a time. But the other important thing I wanted to mention today is, renaming is pretty obvious. If you want to rename the mission statement for 2023, we'll call it the mission statement for July 2023 or whatever the exact date might have been back then. But more importantly, if we want to update our mission statement, let's say we've got a mission statement for 2024, an updated mission statement, and we might have actually linked our mission statement to more than just indicator 1.1.1. If we go edit, replace, very simply, we can go into our computer folders and we can find our, updated mission statement doc. So I've now replaced the old one with a new one, but I will have to rename what that doc's called in the portal. So I'll just pop back in and say, called July 2024. And importantly, what that does is by simply replacing the old evidence doc with the new evidence doc, it gets updated throughout the portal wherever the original doc had been linked. So in this case, I'd only link the original 2023 mission statement just to that single indicator 1.1.1 in ACES certificate. But I might have arguably linked that particular evidence doc to, half a dozen or a dozen different places. And that's the benefit of doing an edit replace, is it just updates wherever the document had been linked in the first place. The other point I wanted to make is originally that was a PDF doc and I replaced it with a PDF doc, but there's nothing stopping me replacing a PDF doc with a hyperlink, because you might say, well, actually last year we had our mission statement, as a PDF doc, but we've now moved all of our core documents into SharePoint. So I want to replace the PDF doc with a SharePoint hyperlink. And that's where you can simply go edit, replace, and you copy and paste in a hyperlink just here. Just for argument's sake, I don't have a SharePoint hyperlink handy. So let's just replace that PDF doc with the Sydney Morning Herald website. So now you'll see, what was previously a PDF document has now been replaced with a hyperlink. And equally, if we've got a SharePoint hyperlink, we could replace that with a PDF doc. So we can replace anything with anything, PDF with PDF, PDF with a hyperlink, or a hyperlink with PDF or Excel or Word or whatever it happens to be.
James,
Yeah.
would you mind if I just asked a quick question?
Sure.
Just regarding hyperlinks to SharePoint. Do you plan on discussing that a bit later in the session?
Well, let's talk about it right now. That was Kay, was it?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. So let's talk about it right now. And I guess while you bring that up, Kay, I talk about linking using SharePoint hyperlinks as evidence. But obviously, the critical thing you've got to be fully aware of is if you load up SharePoint hyperlinks as evidence, that's all fine at your end when you click on that hyperlink and open it up because you've got access to SharePoint. But if you're being audited by Marie at Highwire, you'll need to permission, Marie to have that temporary access to those evidence documents that are residing in SharePoint. So obviously that's something that you've got to be conscious of. But we're finding a lot of organisations are doing that. The added benefit of using a SharePoint hyperlink is that let's say, for example, our mission statement is in SharePoint, and every now and then someone goes and makes a little bit of a tweak here or there to the mission statement. They're making a couple of changes, updating it. As long as they don't change the name of that document in SharePoint, the hyperlink shouldn't change. So what that means is as documents are being updated outside of SPP, by virtue of the fact that you're using SharePoint hyperlinks, then the currency of your evidence has been kept up to date in SPP. Whereas if you upload a PDF document, and then the mission statement is updated outside of SPP, you will need to replace the old PDF document with a new PDF document, which is what we did a moment ago. So, Kay, did you have
there's definitely some benefits.
Yeah.
I would just suggest that if anyone's going to do that, that it's a really good idea to speak to your assessor before, just to test it, because permissions in SharePoint are quite complex. And I've had, I can't tell you how many blocked permissions I've had from organisations that think that they've given me permission, but depending on where the files are residing on SharePoint, it can cause all sorts of grief. So it really just, in order for the assessment to run smoothly, we kind of need to test it.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think that's a really good idea. And normally, just to that end, what we're always saying to organisations is, even step number one, if you're using SPP and you're working with an auditor, let them know that you're using SPP and make sure that they're comfortable with that, even though that shouldn't be a problem. But equally, you probably want to say to them, we're using SPP and we're using SharePoint hyperlinks in SPP. Is that going to be okay? But yeah, with all that sort of stuff, Kate, like even getting an auditor a log into SPP can sometimes kind of be a bit cumbersome, making sure that they're all invited in. In the case of Highwire, as Marie and Kay know, what we do for all the Highwire organisations, or all the organisations using SPP who are being audited by Highwire, with your permission, we link your account to a reviewing area that Highwire has. And that way, Highwire gets that access to review work in your account. But what we also say to providers sometimes is, or what a number of providers do, I just come all the way back to my account here. Sometimes what providers do is they actually set up their own dedicated reviewer login. So in the same way that you can invite in one of your colleagues into your account as a user, type in that colleague's email address, designate them as a service account user, and then you can invite them into your account. What some organisations do is they set up their own internal dedicated reviewer login. So if I'm working at, let's say, Uniting, I might have a dedicated login called, reviewer@uniting.org.au or something like that. And that way it's a reviewer login that your organisation has set up. You own the password, and then you can hand over that reviewer login to a third-party individual or auditor. And at the end of the audit, you can just change the password so they can't get in anymore if you so choose. So that's just an alternative way in which you can link up with some other auditor. In the case of Highwire, I think that's all pretty straightforward in terms of linking your account to their reviewing area. But sometimes, an organisation might want to invite in some other third party. It might be someone reviewing their work against the child safe standards or whatever it happens to be, the NDIS practice standards. It's just an alternative way in which you can give reviewer access where you actually control the reviewer login at your end. Now, what are some of the other things I wanted to talk about? Well, this is another thought for you all as well. So, something we occasionally do for providers is we are sometimes asked to completely clear their account. So they may, for whatever reason, want to completely start from scratch. I can probably almost hear a collective gasp of shock and horror that you wouldn't want someone to, be deleting all of your evidence documents and all your hard work that you completed already in the portal. But just in certain cases, organisations just want to completely start from scratch. So bear in mind, if you would like to do that, if you'd like your document library cleared completely, we can do that for you. If you'd like all of your yes/no answers to all the assessment questions for any set of standards, ACES, NDIS, aged care, whatever it happens to be, we can clear a single set of standards of all of your answers to the original assessment questions. So again, you can start off from scratch. We don't give you the ability to do that because you don't want one of your colleagues inadvertently thinking, I wonder what this button does, and completely deleting all of your evidence. So in order to get that done, we ask you to ask us to do that and give us very clear instructions in writing, so there's no confusion around that. Yeah, so I sort of feel like I've covered off a lot of the kind of main update stuff I wanted to cover off. A few more things, I guess. If we go back into ACES certificate, for example, of course, you can come back in at any time and add more evidence docs. And even when you're inside a module like, in this case, indicator 1.1.1, of course, you can, remove an evidence doc. Actually, if I update this, I haven't refreshed this page yet, and we've still got the old mission statement. If I update this, you'll see now it's the mission statement for July 2024, and I'm pretty sure I replaced the old one with the Sydney Morning Herald website. So if I click on that, yep, there we go. So that's where, when we make those updates in the evidence document library, where doing edit replaces in the evidence document library, it flows through to the assessment itself just here. But of course, if we want to, we can straight here, we can just remove our mission statement from this module if we want to, and of course we can add in as many docs as we want. The other thing, of course, you can come in and add more comments at any time as well. But the other important thing is, aside from, as probably most people on this call will be aware, whenever you answer no to an assessment question, in this case, it's indicator 1.1.1, and we can assign a task to a colleague, what you'll probably find is after you've already gone through your first audit, you've probably said yes to pretty much everything. That yes, you're already meeting all of these various indicators in ACES certificate. So the other handy tip to bear in mind is you can come back in and add in a custom action at any time. And you might, do something like, right, ACES 1.1.1, whatever it is, manage, my typing's so bad, management review, and say we need to review our mission statement. So I might as well type it out properly. Yeah, so, sorry about that, team. It's taking me about half an hour just to write the word mission statement. So, yeah, so I just wanted to just remind you all that you've got in each of these modules the ability to add a custom action down the bottom. And that might be a way in which you can work through the standards again. And already you might have half a dozen linked evidence docs in here. You might have some terrific commentary in here that perhaps doesn't even need to be updated. But there might just be some workflow items you want to assign to different colleagues. And it doesn't have to be one. It might be a couple. We need board sign-off of the new mission statement or something like that. So all of those custom actions that you add into each of these modules for each of the ACES indicators, they will all get captured in the standards action plan. So the standards action plan, being a list of all of those, gaps or actionable items that we identify throughout our self-assessment. So again, that might be potentially a way in which you can work back through as a certificate and think, what else do we want to do here? What other things can we be doing to update our work against the standards and get ready for our next round of accreditation?
James, I have a question and Emily's got a question.
Sure.
But I've got two, Emily, so I'm sorry. Can you show us how we can tick off, we can select no for all the questions?
Yep.
So if we're coming back in and we're doing our self-assessment again and we want to just uncheck every answer?
Yeah, sure. So, well, if we go back in here, if we go back into 1.1.1, which is the only one where we've actually had an answer, we can just click no. So even though we might have previously said yes, the roles and values are clearly identified and communicated, we can tick no, and that's how we can create a fresh action. So rather than maybe adding in a custom action down the bottom, we could answer no to it, and again do exactly the same thing.
Can we do it for all the questions, James?
Well, I'm not sure you want to go through and manually write no to every single.
No, I mean, can you do it bulk for all the questions? Is there a button that says?
No, there's not a button to do it bulk for all questions. But as I said before, one thing that we can do, Marie, is we can revert all your answers back to being unanswered.
Okay, great.
But that's why I said right at the start of today's session, probably one of the most important things you want to do at the start of the process, if you're going to make some big changes, is to archive your previous work, because you don't want to delete all of your precious comments and evidence docs and answers and then think, oh, hang on, I didn't keep a record of all that stuff. How did I answer that indicator last time?
Sure.
So if we do clear all your yes, no answers, it will clear all of your text box answers as well. Yeah. We've got the ability to leave in the linked evidence docs, but then clear the yes, no answers.
Okay.
Or vice versa. We could clear all the linked evidence docs, but leave the answers as they previously were.
Okay. There's
a couple of different things that we can do depending on what people want to do.
And I've got a library question.
Sure.
If you were a first-time organisation,
yep,
I have heard that there's a way to do a bulk upload.
Yep. Yeah,
would you be able to tell us how to do a bulk upload?
Yeah, so just really quickly, if we go back into that document library, and I'll show you how to do that. If we just find a couple of dummy docs that we can load up. Let me see.
So a scenario I'm imagining while you do that, James, is that we maybe previously prepared our accreditation evidence in folders on our shared drive. And now we want to put that evidence into the portal. Let's say, we've just decided we're going to use the portal, or we're doing it next time. The way that we could get a number of documents in there at once.
Yeah. So just to quickly show you how that works, we think, okay, I want to load up a whole bunch of my safeguarding evidence documents, whatever they might be. And you can drag and drop up to 10 docs at a time. So all you do is you come to the document library, you click on the Add Documents button, and then you highlight the docs concerned, just drag and drop them straight into the portal.
Oh, 10 at a time.
So, and then what you can do, so in this case, I've only dragged in 4 docs. We can drag up to 10 docs, and then you've got the option to manually type in the name of the doc or to auto name it based on the underlying file name.
Oh, right.
Without the .doc or .pdf.
Uh-huh.
So that's actually a pretty good idea. If you want to get large numbers of docs into the portal, and you've got a clear idea as to what those documents are, you can drag and drop them all in relatively quickly. The only thing to bear in mind is you can only drag and drop physical docs. If you want to put in a hyperlink, you can only do one at a time, name it and copy and paste in the hyperlink.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but the handy thing about that is that, I just I just dragged and dropped in the, whatever it was, the safeguarding committee minutes. So then if I come across, any part of the standards, let's just say we're going to our review processes and we think the safeguarding minutes have got something to do with that, when I go to link evidence, I can go, great, that's just what I loaded up a second ago. And I can go tag, 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 and I can link all 5 docs in straight away.
Yeah, okay.
Whereas if I'm self-assessing and I go to load in a new doc, I can only load up one at a time. So it's slower to load up one doc at a time. Whereas if you drag and drop 10 docs at a time into the document library, they'll just be sitting there waiting to be linked when you're self-assessing.
Thank you.
James, just for the people that are a bit new to this or rusty with this, so like an example might be you could load up all of your policy documents, but they can sit there and not be linked if you actually don't
Correct.
want to use them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you could just put them all in there, go and search for your, incident management policy or something and
Yep.
link that where it's relevant.
Yeah.
And another policy could be just sitting there and your assessor won't see them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Thank you. Emily?
You're up.
Emily, we can't hear you, lovely. Why is that?
maybe Emily can type something into the chat if we can't hear her voice.
Emily, I'm sorry. Type it into the chat. Yeah, I can see. Yeah, sorry, Emily. We'll be looking for your question in the chat there. Thank you, James. Other questions? Anyone? Any questions? I'll just while Emily's typing that, I will let people know that James kindly did do another of these sessions for us. I don't know. I think it's probably 2 years ago now, but it is more tips and tricks for people who are starting out. So it's got some tips and tricks about the action plan and the work plan that sits behind the self-assessment too. So I will include the link to that presentation from James in our follow-up email from today's session.
Yep. And also, Marie, from our side,
Please says it's a complicated one, James. So she's going to reach out separately. Before James is allowed to leave today, he'll be giving you all of his contact details so you can get in touch with him. Those of you that have contacted James before would know that he's a super helpful guy and loves to hear from you. So that's all good. Thanks, James.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. I've misspelt my own name. That's not too good.
That's one way to get rid of him.
Yeah, exactly.
Got a question there, James, too, when you're ready.
Hi, yes. This is just basically relatively new to me, given that I'm just recently been appointed to the role. So just I'm navigating the portal now, and it's stated obviously for services that have not previously used it, it's recommended that we use the unmapped version. And then from my research, it appears to be 1 to 8. Is that accurate? So that's just the self-assessment that we're required to complete. Would that be correct? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
What's the 1 to 8 bit?
I think it's probably just standards 1 to 8, is it?
Yes.
Would that be right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes, Emma. Sorry.
So that would be the required piece that I'd be coordinating. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you should find that there are 100 questions.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. Within the 8 sections. Yes.
Yes.
But I just want to ensure I'm in the correct place in the
Perfect,
portal.
Emma.
Okay. Thank you.
Perfect.
So, Marie, just in relation to Emily mentioned she's got a complicated question, and she's probably going to reach out to us separately. If any other people on the call feel they'd like to ask a question without 20 other people listening in to a question, we're happy to do one-on-one stuff like that, or even do a refresher webinar for your particular organisation or something like that. So let us know if you need that one-on-one support.
Kay's got a question, James.
Kay's always got a question.
Yay.
So James, I just want to there's often a bit of confusion around the mapped and unmapped versions. And like, I think it's pretty clear that, you know, if your organization is going to go for accreditation across a number of different standards, that's what the mapped version is built for.
Yep.
And that's the only thing the mapped version's built for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So the question is about, so because I've had a few organizations that have perhaps misunderstood that and have sort of started working on the mapped version. So if you've linked evidence, so if you're in the middle of the mapped version and you've linked evidence, is that going to show up in the unmapped or not?
No, it doesn't. No, unmapped is standalone. It's a standalone assessment only for ACES certificate, or if it's unmapped NDIS, it's a standalone assessment only for NDIS, or likewise aged care. The idea of mapping is where a provider might have to meet multiple standards, and it's designed to try and, you know, mitigate that duplication that exists in terms of common requirements across multiple standards.
Yeah.
And just to very briefly explain how that works. So how do we within SPP simultaneously address, you know, common requirements across multiple standards? Because if you think about it, most sets of standards have requirements around governance and around, you know, cultural safety, or privacy is probably the best example. They all have privacy requirements, but almost every set of standards asks or, you know, has slightly differently worded privacy requirements. So some will just say, you know, do you respect your consumers' privacy? Others will start to go into a whole lot of prescriptive detail around, do you get consent, and does the client know what sort of information you're keeping about them, ... you know. So how do you automatically cross-map within the portal across common themes, even though there's varying levels of prescription for the same theme? So the way in which we do that in a mapped assessment is we get people to work through a very detailed module on privacy. So we'll have a series of best practice modules on a theme like privacy. So we'll actually be getting you to answer a whole lot more reflective questions on privacy than might be asked in your one set of standards. But the whole idea is, if by completing a very detailed module on privacy in our mapped assessment, you can simultaneously address the privacy requirements across a whole lot of standards at the same time. Because our mapped assessments for all those different standards contain the same very thorough privacy assessment module. So that's how we do it. Common thematic module on a key theme like privacy. But that can get a bit complicated, Kay, as you say.
Pardon?
That's where it can be a bit complicated. And if a provider only has to meet ACES certificate, we'd be recommending, you know, the simple unmapped journey will be a much easier journey for them.
It's much easier. Yeah. And yeah, I think it does get complicated because, you know, then we can get like 20 pieces of evidence for one question, which is sometimes difficult because we tell everybody, don't give us 20 pieces of evidence. But I think, it was probably more about that sort of confusion, and have people kind of, you know, committed themselves to mapped and then regretted it. But I guess the thing is, like, the documents are in their document library, whether they've used mapped or unmapped. Because I have had people go, you know what, we're going to go back and do mapped because we can put commentary. You can't put commentary in the mapped version.
Correct.
So, you know, they elect to go unmapped because they can actually explain what a document is. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So it might take you a little bit more time if you've gone partway down that path, but ultimately it might be a better solution for you. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify that. So it's definitely not saved anywhere to mapped.
No problem. No, thank you for asking. I think it's a good question.
Emily's back. Hello, Emily. No, I still can't hear. I'm so sorry for Emily. Oh. Well, I want to encourage you to keep asking questions if you like. We're not rushing off, but I wanted to just thank everyone for coming along and being part of it. I know, Emily, I thought you'd fixed it too, but and I'd love to hear your voice some other time. So keep working on that, girl. And let's all thank James. I'll get my reactions happening. Get my beautiful reactions happening for James. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
And I just
everyone.
want to shout out too and say, if you've ever had a chance to give that BNG team a call or send them an email, you'll know how friendly and responsive they are. I never, ever, ever in all of my years of working with organisations have heard a bad word about this organisation. And so I want to say how very lucky we are, you know, that we get to work with all this amazing software and technology that's meant to be super helpful for us. Well, it's only as helpful as the helpful people in the end, isn't it? Because sometimes it can be quite a nightmare to wangle your way through it, but we always get the help we need. I don't know how many superheroes you've got working behind you, James, but they've obviously all got their cape on.
No, we do our best to try and be as responsive as we can, Marie. That's why a second ago, I actually typed in our team email address aside from my own one, because you're much more likely to be treated badly by me than our entire team. You know, if you, because I was away for 2 weeks, I only just got back at the start of this week. So if you thought you were going to get a prompt response from me over the last fortnight, you would have been sadly mistaken. So our team email could be the best way to get, you know, the most expedient response.
Good. And James and ourselves at Highwire, we're always happy to jump in. If you give us access, we're always happy to jump in there and give you feedback about how you're going with your, you know, evidence linking in terms of, you know, is this the right piece of evidence? Is this enough evidence? Is this too old? Yeah, probably. All right. So we'll give you that feedback. So there's no chance that anybody's going to go wrong with this. All right. Again, I will copy the link to James's earlier presentation, which is all a bit more the starting up sort of tips and tricks, but that's been fantastic, James. I appreciate you. We appreciate you. And everybody waves because it looks so good. Turn your cameras on. Give us a wave. Come on, wave. People, or I'm going to stop recording.
Thanks, everyone. Okay, I'll hop, Marie. I'll let you finish